What if the person you have been looking for your whole life has been standing beside you all along? Hello everyone, welcome to my channel Samiha Storyland. Today I am going to tell you a beautiful romantic story about a young man who spent years searching for his perfect life, without realizing that the girl who knew his heart better than anyone else was already right beside him. Stay with me until the very end because sometimes the greatest love story begins with the simplest friendship. Now let's begin. My name is Idan, and for most of my life I believed that love was something you had to search for. I thought one day I would meet a beautiful stranger. She would walk into my life, our eyes would meet, and suddenly I would know she was the one. I was 25 when I first realized how wrong I had been, because the girl I had been searching for had been standing beside me for almost 10 years. Her name was Sophie. Sophie was my best friend. We met when we were 16. It was our first day of high school. I was sitting alone at lunch when a girl suddenly sat across from me. She smiled and said, "You look lonely." I looked at her and replied, "You just sat at my table without asking." She laughed. "Then I guess we are friends now." That was Sophie. She never waited for permission to make people feel less alone. From that day on, we were inseparable. We studied together. We watched movies together. We celebrated birthdays together. Whenever I was sad, Sophia was there. Whenever I was happy, she was the first person I called. But I never thought of her as anything more than my best friend. Or at least, that's what I told myself. As we grew older, I started dating other girls, and Sophia always knew about them. One evening, I called her after my first serious relationship ended. She broke up with me, I said. Sophia was silent for a moment. Then she asked, "Are you okay?" "No." She laughed softly. "Come over." I went to her house. She made me hot chocolate. We sat on the floor and watched our favorite movie. She didn't ask me to explain anything. She just stayed beside me. And somehow that made everything better. Years passed. One day, I told Sophia I had met someone new. Her name was Clara. I was excited. I told Sophia everything. "She's beautiful. She's funny. I think I really like her." Sophia smiled. "I'm happy for you." But there was something strange in her eyes, something I didn't understand. I started spending more time with Clara. I called Sophia less. We stopped meeting every weekend. And slowly I began to notice something. I missed her. One night, I was walking home after a date with Clara. My phone rang. It was Sophia. "Hey," she said. "Hey." There was silence. Then she asked, "Are you happy?" I smiled. "Yeah, I think I am." She replied, "Good." Then she hung up. I stared at my phone. For some reason, her voice had sounded different. The next morning, I called her. No answer. I texted her. No reply. I tried again. Nothing. 3 days passed, then a week. Sophia had disappeared from my life. I finally went to her house. Her mother opened the door. I asked, "Is Sophia here?" Her mother looked surprised. "Didn't she tell you?" "Tell me what?" She signed. "She's moving to another city." My heart suddenly sank. What? She got a new job. She's leaving tomorrow. I couldn't believe it. I immediately called Sophia. This time she answered. Why didn't you tell me? I asked. There was silence. I thought you were busy. You are my best friend. She laughed softly. Exactly. What does that mean? She didn't answer. I went to see her that evening. Her room was filled with boxes. Everything was packed. I looked at her. You are really leaving? She nodded. Yes. Why? Sophia looked at me, and for the first time in 10 years, I saw tears in her eyes. Because I need to move on. Move on from what? She looked away. From you. I froze. What are you talking about? She took a deep breath. Ethan, I have loved you for years. My heart stopped. What? She smiled sadly. I loved you when you were 16. I loved you when you were 20. I loved you when you called me after every breakup. And I kept hoping that one day you would look at me and see me differently. I couldn't speak. Then she continued. But you never did. You always told me about the girls you loved. And I always pretended I was happy for you. She wiped away a tear. But I was hurting. I felt something break inside me. All those years, all those memories, suddenly they looked completely different. The hot chocolate, the late night calls, the birthday surprises, the way she always remembered the smallest things about me. She had never just been my best friend, she had been loving me the entire time. If you were Ethan, what would you do? Would you tell your best friend how you truly feel, or would you let her leave? Tell me your answer in the comments before we continue. I looked at Sophia. Why didn't you tell me? She smiled through her tears. Because I was afraid. Afraid of what? Of losing you completely. That sentence broke my heart. Because she had been so afraid of losing me that she had decided to leave me. I suddenly realized something. I had spent years looking for love. I had dated beautiful women. I had searched for someone who understood me, someone who knew my fears, my dreams, my flaws, someone who would stay when things became difficult. And that person had been Sophia. She had been beside me the entire time. I stepped closer to her. Sophia. She looked at me. I don't know when it happened, but I think I fell in love with you a long time ago. Her eyes filled with tears. You don't have to say that because I am leaving. I shook my hand. I'm not saying it because you are leaving. I'm saying it because I finally understand. She whispered, Understand what? I smiled. That I don't want to spend the rest of my life searching for someone who makes me feel the way you do. Because I have already found her. Sophia started crying. Ethan. I took her hand. Please don't leave tomorrow. She looked at me. Why? I smiled. Because I have something to ask you. I took a deep breath. Would you give me a chance? She stared at me. A chance for what? I laughed nervously. For us. For a few seconds, she said nothing. Then she smiled. You took 10 years to figure that out? I laughed. I'm sorry. She shook her head. You were lucky I waited. That night, Sophia cancelled her flight. And for the first time, we went on our first real date. Not as best friends, but as two people who were finally brave enough to admit what had been in their hearts all along. We went to the same little cafe where we had spent so many years talking about our lives. I looked across the table. Do you remember when we first met? Sophia smiled. You were sitting alone, and you said I looked lonely. You did. I laughed. I wasn't lonely. She raised an eyebrow. Really? I smiled. Not after you sat down. She reached across the table and held my hand. And suddenly everything made sense. Sometimes the person you spend your whole life searching for isn't someone new. Sometimes it's the person who has been standing beside you through every heartbreak, every failure, every happy moment. The person who knows your worst days and still chooses to stay. 3 years later, I took Sophia back to the same place where we first met, the school cafeteria. The same table was still there. I got down on one knee. Sophia covered her mouth in surprise. I smiled and said, You once told me we were friends because you sat at my table without asking. She laughed through her tears. Yes, I held out a ring, so I thought it was time I finally asked you something properly. Sophia, will you be my best friend forever? She was crying now. That's not a proposal. I smiled. Okay. I took a deep breath. Will you marry me? She looked at me, and with tears of happiness, she said yes. Today, Sophia is still my best friend, but now she is also my wife. And sometimes when I look at her, I think about that 16-year-old boy sitting alone at a lunch table. He thought he was waiting for love to find him, but he didn't realize. Love had already found him. It was sitting right across the table. Thank you so much for listening to today's story. If you enjoyed this romantic story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Samiha's Storyland.